Hey, sports fans! Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live show over on the Green Room app and simulcast at the same time on YouTube. Great to see everybody here on this fine Wednesday, September 8th. And looking to chop it up a little bit as we get closer to the season. Every minute that goes by is a little bit closer toward the beginning of training camp and things about the NBA that we got to start discussing. I want to hear from you guys as well. So if you're over on the YouTube side, download the Green Room app and link in the description below and come on in the room and chop it up and let me know what you want to talk about, because I want to hear from you. I don't want to talk completely for the hour all by myself. I'm sure we're going to have lots of people coming in here and streaming through, but I suppose we all want to know what I'm talking about when I mention the dirty little secret, which is the title of the show today. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with being a little provocative and trying to stir some stuff up. And I don't know. I'm thinking what I was going to talk about, what I think I mean about Dirty Little Secret is assists. I kind of feel like I'm going to launch, I've been threatening for years to launch a weekly show that's called the Top 10 BS Assists of the Week, maybe Top 5 BS Assists of the Week, because when I'm going through and looking at people's assists for all the season now, I'm doing one on Ben Simmons right now, and I call up, you know, just all their assists, and you look at what they consider an assist these days. It's a little bit troubling, and it kind of makes me wonder whether we can use that for anything anymore. That stat, the assist per game stat, is bloated, and it's not the kind of thing that we might not use as a way to ascertain how good a player is. Certainly, I don't think we can use assists as a passing metric, honestly. Like vision and passing, it's really troubling when you look at it that way. So people are flying in here, want to talk it up and chop it up with me. So let's go in here and bring it up. I see all you guys in the chat, oh, by the way, on the YouTube side. Hello, everybody. Hi, Jacob. Don't forget, if you want to catch my eye, Super Chat is always the way to go on YouTube. That'll get your question right to the top of the list, and I'll get it right to it as soon as I see it. So let's bring in, though, we got Julian Allen wants to come and speak. So, Julian, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, brother.
Hey, what's happening, man?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, man? How you doing?
You know, I'm feeling pretty good. I had a good talk before we went live with some coaches and kind of got some energy going, some X's and O's stuff in my head. So I'm excited. What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about licking ass.
Okay. Well, that was nice. Nonetheless, hopefully YouTube will not penalize us for that one. But, you know, it hasn't happened yet. I guess we were destined to do that. In fact, that reminds me of me. I was doing a live shot. No, it wasn't live, actually. I was filming it in front of Staples before one of those games. And you know what people say, that is that one phrase everybody likes to say when they run up behind the cameraman and say it. So that happened to me too once. But nonetheless, thank you so much for that. That was great. But let's go. I suppose, you know, I've struggled so hard to get this whole thing hooked up properly so you can hear the sound perfectly on the YouTube side and have it clean. And I'm glad that I guess you got that too. Nonetheless, what else do we want to talk about? Okay, we got some people talking about in the discussion over on the Green Room app. Hey, what's up, Frank? Alf says box creation is better in that aspect. And then Ben Taylor is Thinking Basketball, right? Frank Jenkins was telling me that he has passer rating as well. So yeah, I would like to look a little more at those kind of things, because certainly there are ways you can ascertain how good a passer somebody is. But I just feel like assists is not it. It's bloated. It's almost like defensive rebounding these days, because no one goes for the offensive rebounds. Most of those are easy. You're getting them, you know, on a defensive free throw miss as well. Those probably shouldn't count as much as a live ball rebound. So we got to kind of come up with some different ways of ascertaining these things and measuring them. Sam, what's happening, my man? Are you there? I see.
Hello?
Yeah. What's up, Sam?
So I hear what you're saying about the recent assist numbers being kind of bloated in terms of what's actually considered an assist. But I also heard a couple stories before about, like, John Stockton's assist total sometimes being like 2 to 3 assists higher at home than away at times. So do you think that that's, like, maybe just kind of what's happened where, like, the scorekeeping is a little bit different depending on who's doing it, and it just kind of has been like that for a while?
Oh, yeah. This is a decades-old problem. There was an article written about the maybe early 2000s of this very thing where people would be calling down and people being, people from the team, make sure that's an assist or give them an assist later or whatever. Yeah, it's really political. And in fact, I just heard the other day after I'd railed against it again on Twitter, somebody reached out to me and said, yeah, there are times when I've been told I have to give that an assist, even though the guy dribbled like 3 times and like did an ISO move and scored. And that's what I'm talking about, by the way. I'm not sure if I was clear, but like when you see what is an assist sometimes, it's literally like the guy throws the ball up ahead and then the guy catches the ball, does a move, inside out dribble, crossover, 2 dribbles, pulls up for a heavily contested long 2 or something and nails it. And they give the guy an assist. It really is frustrating that way when nothing that the guy did led to the bucket.
Yeah, no, I totally see what you're saying, especially with now like triple doubles being such like a goal and kind of counted up so much, and they matter so much. I'm like, oh, this player's doing them so young, or now those assist numbers matter so much. Is it the coaches or like the assistant coaches who's complaining about like you just said, like they'll say you got to give him an assist for that?
Oh no, I think it's purely like the marketing department and like the ownership side or the GM side. Right, okay. I think those guys. Although, ironically, the more you pad those stats, the more you got to pay later when you have to renegotiate their contracts. So that's also interesting in a way. But then again, obviously, points will speak louder than anything else, and that one you can't fudge. But yeah, it's not like the team or the coaching staffs at all. It's definitely like ownership and general manager, that kind of thing. I think is who's doing that. And thinking back, yeah, and this goes back into I'm sure the 80s too, or maybe even earlier than that. I know assists used to be undercounted. That was sort of what they used to say way back in like Oscars day. But certainly in the last 20, 30 years, it's been a problem at least. And they think that, who's going to really notice? Well, now you can make one click of a button on the stats.nba.com site and look at the assists with your eyes and decide. So, we need to figure that out. The other thing that's interesting, by the way, from an X's and O's standpoint is that, who are the guys that get a lot of assists now, who get the 10, 11 a game? If you're going to be the guy like Lonzo, for instance, they're saying maybe he'll get over 7 a game this year because he's got all these people to throw to. But in the context of an offense, if you're the guard that has to dribble the ball past half court and then throw a pass to the wing or something and then cut away, like you're probably not getting that many assists. It's sort of like what the Tony Parker, dilemma, where in the Spurs offense, which is what a lot of people kind of run now, and that sort of that same basic idea. The point guard never amasses a ton of assists because they're not dominating the ball off the dribble as much as you see now with the guys like Luka and Harden. When those guys do all their ISO dance stuff and then they can set people up that way for legitimate assists, that's where you see the massive numbers where you get in the double digits. But if you're just a regular point guard running these offenses, you're not going to get a lot of those times. You'll probably get more opportunities to score, but you're not going to get a lot of those assist passes that will lead to buckets and lead to that category. So it's almost by design the way that the offenses are run now that you're going to be stuck in that way. But we got a couple people who just came in here. Frank, what's happening?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to think about that whole assist thing. I mean, at the end of the day, it's mostly going to be these heliocentric guys, the guys who dominate their team's usage rate, the guys like Russell Westbrook, Giannis. Well, he got a bit more playmaking help this season, but before this season, he also got racked up a lot of assists doing that. LeBron, a lot of these guys who are the focal point of their offenses for the vast majority of the game and who dribble the air out the ball are, of course, going to benefit from these kind of rules and get a ton of assists.
Absolutely. So as a result, yeah, it's like the traditional point guards guy. Now, we should look at Chris Paul's numbers. Maybe I'll quickly grab that up because, again, there's a guy who's very, very traditional. But let me look. I don't even think he averaged more than 8. Let me look. Am I crazy here? This past year, let's see. Per game, he averaged 8.9. So there's an example of a guy who was, but then, there also the notion of the pick and roll, and you get a lot of opportunities that way. So, you know what? In reality, Chris Paul does get those ISO-y, multi-dribble, dominating the ball stuff too. I'm just trying to think of the guys like, the Lonzos or of the world are just simply never going to get a chance to do that and get a lot of assists despite playing that position.
Yeah. I mean, 3 of the top 5 are Westbrook, Trae Young, and Luka Doncic. So I'm not shocked.
Right. That's another good call. Right. So, and clearly is a difference. Like Trae Young isn't the kind of guy who's going to make a pass to the wing and then cut to the weak side corner and then be a part of the offense. That's definitely true. So that's a different issue. So if you're going to get to be that ball dominant guy, it's tough because let's just say you're a great little guard and you get drafted by the Hawks now. Like you'll probably never get that opportunity. It's always going to be Trae because he got there 2 years before.
And assists don't judge the quality of the pass. So if
Absolutely.
you pass it to the guy at the end of the shot clock and he happens to put up a contested shot, well, you got the assist.
Now
But
you
you
know
pass it to an
why.
open guy. Exactly.
Now you know why I hate defensive stats, because you can do the most amazing defense and the guy still scores, but it's the same as if you got beat back door and weren't paying attention and the guy dunked on you. We need to improve that as well. But then again, the defensive things are very tough as well, because we don't know how to ascertain whether or not they were executing the game plan properly, because you should get a lot of kudos and points or whatever for that, and instead, if the guy scores, it looks like you were just a terrible defender. And also, the good defenders play the best offensive players, so they're going to get scored on a lot more than other guys, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad defenders, right? It's sort of like, but that's what the stats could look like. It's too messy for me. I've yet to see one I actually like and respect and feel like is illuminating enough. But we're working on it, I hope.
Yeah, asymmetric information. All right, I'm gonna let someone else.
Thanks, Frank.
Turn.
All right, who else is up in this chat wants to talk?
Oh yeah, I think pace and shooting helps with the assists, like being more common until they need players like Trae Young, Luka, and like it's harder. Yeah, that was my point.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, those are the guys. And by the way the offenses are run now, yeah, if you're lucky enough to be that guy. I mean, I think the other question tends to be, how many of those kind of guys are there in the NBA? Like, could CJ McCollum do what Dame does? And like, if he goes to Philly, let's say, can he be that guy who does a lot bit more of that stuff? And I think so. I think there's a lot of those kind of players who maybe never get a chance in their role to shine and do that kind of thing and be a ball dominant guy, who could. And, if you get lucky and the stars align right properly, then you get to have those opportunities. It's a wonder, how do you get to that point? I suppose somebody gets hurt and then you get that shot and you can display it a little bit. And they're like, oh, okay, we got to give you more of these opportunities. I suppose that's how it works. Look at James Harden, right? He was a role player for a while until he got to Houston and then just exploded. So, but there's a lot of those kind of players who just need an opportunity. So, good call. Who else wants to jump in here? Okay. I'm looking through here. I want to make sure I don't miss any super chats. Remember, if you're on the YouTube side and you want to grab me and ask a question, super chat's the way to go. I think everything is working here. I didn't turn it down, did I? No, I think I turned it up so I could hear that last talk. Anthony, are you there? You want to talk?
Yeah, Coach, I think you mentioned defensive stats or defensive numbers can't be trusted either.
Right.
I guess, what things would you look at? Like, I know one of the popular ones, especially for, as a Warriors fan, we're watching Wiggins. He was one of the best defensive, I guess, field goal percentage against was, I think, one of the stats that he was very high on.
Wait, I'm sorry. Which player are we talking about?
Andrew Wiggins.
Yes. Okay.
So I think he was like number 2 or 3 in field goal percentage against.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess how when you're looking at some of these stats, I know we were talking about assists before, but I'm curious about your take on defensive stats too.
So
like what things would you look at?
Well, I like field goal percentage against, as long as it's the kind of thing where he really is, defending him. He's facing the man. His hand is up. If it's that's how they're doing it. Sometimes they track it if he was guarding the guy to begin the possession, and then it counts as his possession, even if they switch 3 times, and that's a problem. But the other thing is the cameras can't track like what direction the guy is facing. Like if he's nearby the man, but he's not even, he's turned the other way or for whatever reason, and he says his arm isn't up, then that's not really great, even the guy that might miss. That's the other thing, is there's no quality of contest. As far as I know, at least the Sport View or the Second Spectrum stuff doesn't have a notion of where the hand is in conjunction with where the shooter is, right? Like they can see the feet, but not where the hands are. So that's where I would like to get to. Sometimes you have to. It's your job to bump down on a roll man and then leave your man open, and then you close out, and then he still scores because of that. So it's tough. It's really going to be hard for me to ever be like, okay, that's the most accurate thing. I suppose what you would look for is like timing of the bump down. Were you there on time? Did you like prevent a pass from going in there? The kind of things that maybe internally teams would chart, but you would never see that the light of day in public. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think even just with speaking about Draymond, his ability to get everybody on a string, right? Like, even though he may be the primary defender, he's calling the shots out there as far as the rotations and whatnot, and that could potentially make everybody else a better defender where they may have actually been a worse defender on a different team.
Absolutely. And so the Draymond thing is really vital because he directs so much and he talks so much and he helps so well that like he'll take away passes that never get made. How are you supposed to, see that in a box score? And that's the beauty of it. It's not even like blocks or steals. Deflections they do keep, which is nice, and that's always been a good one. But there's no question that, we haven't figured out how to properly categorize what Draymond does, which is like a full tilt destruction of an offense from one guy without ever actually like even guarding the ball a lot of the time. So there's no question that's a part of it, which then also opens it up to the team defense itself. Are you scran switching properly? Can you switch and not get beat backdoor? All these different things that like it's the not doing things that usually are good on the defensive end, like not allowing things to happen that never get tabulated. So that's that said, if you want to look at like in a macro sense, the teams that do the not like limit the stuff that the offense wants to do enough, obviously will have a higher defensive rating or a higher rank in the defensive rating. So it should come out in that way. But because it's so binary, I get nervous about how noisy those stats are, and they're not accurate. We've seen it in the past. We've seen guys like DeAndre Jordan at his height. I'm thinking of a couple other centers who, for some reason, the team's got a lower defensive rating when they're on the bench, which obviously doesn't tell you that they're the team's better when they're not playing defensively. Obviously, when you watch, and I remember him specifically, but it's happened a number of times with really good defensive players who it's like clearly they're better when he's on the floor, but the numbers aren't necessarily bearing that out for a lot of noisy reasons. So we got to be careful about that. And I do too. I'll use defensive rating sometimes, and offensive rating and net rating a lot, and to kind of back up a point I'm trying to make. But it's a little dangerous. It could be noisy to the point where you're manipulating stuff, which I suppose everybody does to make a point. What else is out there? Anybody else want to join in?
Yeah, Coach. How you doing?
Hey, what's happening, George?
Yeah. So recently I was actually watching a video on like the assists and how it's really it's not what how would I put it? It's a bogus stat basically. So the video was beyond assists, passing, shot creation, and offensive load. It was by a guy called Thinking Basketball on YouTube.
Sure.
So like he kind of broke down how assists might be misleading, how shot creation generally stems from is he a score first guy or pass first guy. So if it's a score first guy, so maybe the defense collapses on him and he makes open shots for his teammates. Or if he's a pass first guy, people want him to try to score more. So he basically kind of not compared, but like he took like Kobe in one state where he was he was in the post, and so they came to double him. So it was a swing, and then it was basically a hockey assist. So like, that doesn't count as basically as an assist, but like he generated the wide open shot for his player, and like maybe Rondo, for instance, who primarily they sag off him and probably maybe want him to shoot more, or maybe the Boston Celtics run offense for maybe Ray Allen to get a wide open pin down, and he just throws it to him and he just catches and shoots it. So yeah, that's
right. Oh yeah, totally. And that's the other thing is some of these guys, like if you're playing alongside a Ray Allen or a Klay Thompson, you can just stand there and dribble the ball 5 times and he comes off a pin down. You just kind of throw it to him and he get the assist. Now that said, there is a notion of, especially with those kind of pin downs, the ball being on time and on target is important. And we have seen certain players struggle to just do that even, who are never, the ball's a little bit low or it's a little bit high, they have to wait for it, and then they'll still maybe make it, and that guy, the passer, gets the assist, even though you're like, dude, you needed to make that pass half a second earlier, and the guy had to wait for it and made it harder. It's kind of like the Ben Simmons thing I'm talking about now, where I'm doing a video, I think it should be out by tomorrow, I hope, where I'm watching the fourth quarter of Game 7 for Sixers versus Hawks, and the shots that they were making in the fourth quarter, the Sixers were harder because of where Ben Simmons was standing. Not that Ben Simmons did anything wrong or he was in whatever, but he's in the way and his man's in the way. And now all Embiid can do is jab step from the free throw line, then shoot a jumper because Simmons' man is standing there waiting for him to help double. And then in the crucial moments toward the end of the game, when Embiid does a spin move and tries to elevate and misses the easy close-in shot, it's because Simmons' man just came over and doubled easily because they knew, because Simmons was so close. So it's all these things that are related and make the offense work a little bit harder a lot of the time. You got to be careful with all these different stats. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Let me take care of. Hang on for 1 second. I got a sorry. I have a super chat from Buzzer Beater over on the YouTube side. Thank you so much for being so generous. And his question was, what would you consider a perfect game for a point guard? I suppose we're speaking like what the box score would look like for a perfect game. I mean, obviously you don't miss any shots and you get a whole bunch of assists and they're all threes. 3-point assists, I suppose, would probably be the best way to do it, and no turnovers. That would probably be the perfect game. So don't miss a shot, don't turn it over, get a bunch of assists, have them all be for threes. And then also have everybody happy. You know, remember, that's the other part of the perfect game. You got to be able to manage that, making sure everyone gets the shots that they want, and that they're all playing together like a team, and they're enjoying the joy of the game. Could very well be one of the best parts about what you need to be as a point guard. By the way, guys like Dame and Steph, they have to be the best teammate in the locker room as well, from a nice guy, likable perspective. Because if you're going to jack it from 45 feet without dribbling the ball, they better like you as a person to allow you to do that a few times. Plus, they'll knock them down enough to make it justifiable. But, you know, big guys are not happy to see that oftentimes unless they feel like they feel good about the player as a person. What else is going on out there? Who else wants to talk in the chat?
What's up, Coach?
What's up, Brian?
Not much. So this whole idea, like I said, the idea that assists are somewhat skewed, like I said, in my opinion, to some extent overrated. I think it also leads to a bigger question that a lot of people try to avoid, especially in older generation. And it's the question of what really is a point guard on the floor? Because for so long, like I said, there's been this perceived image of it's John Stockton or Magic Johnson or whoever the case may be, who's this ball dominant guard who racks up assists, who is normally really only passing it to maybe one or two guys to rack up those numbers while they run numerous pick and rolls, whatever the case may be. But in my opinion, what I've really preached over the last few years is my point guard is essentially whatever player is setting the pace and running the system effectively. Like, point blank simple. He doesn't need to rack up assists to do that. If he's the person setting up the offense, initiating it, moving the ball, making the hockey assists, that's my point guard. Point blank simple.
I mean, I like that. I mean, I think also what you could be saying is he's the guy that just sort of keeps everybody on the same page as well, which is really important. And you can do that a lot of different ways by being a pass-first guy and then taking shots when the team needs it. Or you could be the ball-dominant guy because that's what the team needs to start with and shooting a lot more. I think that the term point guard probably needs to go away, right? I think we need better terms for these positions because there's a lot more than five. And they don't all, when you get stuck trying to fit into one mold, you might not do so well. Then you're out of the NBA just because for some reason you're not like a three. When in fact you're the defensive, catalyst who can, get high post touches. I don't know. Like that's literally how you can, redescribe some of these positions and realize the true worth that they can bring to the table. Not just like whatever. It's almost like shooting. You have this, idea that you want to have a shooter shoot like Klay Thompson. Well, not everybody can do that. In fact, most people can't shoot that way, but you can get the same kind of result with the way their natural way of shooting is. Same with the positions you play. Kind of like I was saying, C.J. McCollum could definitely do the ball dominant guard role if he ever got to that position. But so far in his career, Dame's been there the whole time, so he doesn't get to do that, and he might never. The way this is going, they might stay together the whole time and be a really great tandem, and then C.J. never gets to really show off everything he can do. And it's just how it happens. It's life sometimes. I have another No Limits super chat. Thank you so much. What is the perfect point guard height and weight? Well, for me, if we're talking about like the point guard or whatever position that is, whatever one want to use the term, a guy who's going to like dribble the ball most and whatever, and I would probably want it taller. I would like 6'6", 6'7", 6'10", like that kind of size. You can see over the defense better, and you're bigger. So I would probably say six. Like Magic Johnson's probably that perfect guy, right? So 6'9", 220. Is that what he was? Probably something like that. So, I mean, if I had to put a number to it, that's probably what I would say is that, not to say that I don't like the little guards either, because they're actually more amazing. I'm as tall as Kyle Lowry. I don't understand how he ever got his shot off. Patty Mills is in my height, basically. I was like, I don't know how any of those guys do that. Yeah, I'm really amazed with that. But if I had to choose, I had to build like the perfect point guard, then I'm probably going with like a Magic size and weight. KD height, Alf wants to say KD height of a center, dribble like a guard, shoot like a wing, defense like a power forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
Alf had said something in the chat. He said there's only two positions, independence and dependence. But the thing with that is that I guess he's talking about initiators and maintainers. There are people who are like semi-creators, right? There's people who like do both. So like there's people who are the spot up guys who like space the floor for you, but they also at times alleviate like ball handling duties from like other guards. So like I just
Draymond.
like I don't put people in. I don't think Draymond's a very interesting offensive archetype. I don't know what you would categorize him as, but I tend to just like, and I don't put him in a box or anything, but I tend to just look at players as smalls, wings and bigs, and like go from there. Cause like, what the fuck is a power forward?
Right.
Like, what the fuck is a power forward?
Wait. So who came up with dependent and not and independent? Who came up with that?
That was Alf. Yeah,
Alf.
I understand why he said that, but there's people who kind of do both. So
yeah, no, but I like that. I mean, in any given possession, you're going to have your independent and your dependent people, and that's not a bad way to look at it because obviously some of those players always need to be dependent on somebody else to set them up. Now, if it's like back in the day, if you were a center who like to post up a lot, then you're dependent on the guard to get you the ball. But once you get it, then you're the guy who is now controlling and creating, and everyone else is dependent on you to either kick it out or not. So it's interesting. It's got a lot of levels to that. So there's no question that we should come up with something better and more descriptive that will also allow coaches to open up their minds more and maybe like find other players that maybe would not have gotten opportunities that could get opportunities because they're not bound to this notion of what you have to do at this position or not. Nelly was able to show us a little bit with his wacky lineups. I'm talking about Don Nelson in the past, and we need probably more of that. I think maybe people are just a little bit worried. They don't want to be like too small and get out rebounded too much, which is obviously an issue. But a lot of times you can benefit on the other end as well. So yeah, let's. I have another one from Buzzer Beater, another super chat. Thank you so much for being so generous out there. So Buzzer Beater asks, what changes would you make to improve the game? Oh, wow. That's an interesting question. We can open this up too. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, the offensive ratings keep going up and up and up. So it's like I kind of created a new defense and I'm trying to get some teams to run it I got way out of the box just to sort of realize that whatever we're doing on defense isn't good enough. So I wonder if Buzzer Beater is talking about rules versus like style. But, as far as rules go, certainly what they're on their way towards, fixing some of these jumping into players to get fouls. That's got to change. But obviously we want more scoring. We like that, but we want to limit the amount of outrage you have from any one side at any one time in the game. What else would I do? I don't even know what else I would change. Flopping obviously is gotten better as far as the NBA and like penalizing, but I feel like they've kind of lost their way more recently and probably could improve on the training on that and fix that better even still. What else is there? What else would they make changes to improve the game? I wouldn't say, changing the distance of the 3-point line. I feel like that just benefits those really good shooters even more at that point. And then plus you'd have to make the court wider, and that just seems like that would be tough. So that wouldn't be the best idea. Anybody have any ideas out there in the chat?
What about the corner three, Coach? Getting rid of the corner three.
Interesting. Getting rid of it. Well, what would that do? What does that do for you?
Well, it eliminates, offensive sets in which they just try to get to that 3-point corner, which is the shortest 3-pointer. And then you have a lot of teams who probably shouldn't be shooting as many threes as they do, but you have guys like PJ Tucker who literally only shoot corner threes. So you'd stop seeing a lot more threes going up. I think overall for me, I just think the game is going way too three-centric.
Interesting.
The trend.
Well, by the way, the interesting thing about the concept of the corner three-pointer, it doesn't go in more often because it's shorter, believe it or not. It's a little bit shorter. It goes in more often because almost every single corner three-pointer you're going to shoot is a catch and shoot, not off the dribble. And it's probably going to be open because you have half of the floor where no one's closing out on you there. Like by the nature of you catching it there, you're open because they could throw it to you. And so any kind of closeouts tend to be, enough where you can still get the shot off. So I think that it's the nature of that specific area of the court, not the fact that it's closer that makes it easier to make or makes them more going in more frequently. But so it's like you can move it back, and I think you'd still see a higher percentage of the corner threes going in. Now, if you got rid of that, I suppose just let the three-pointer go off the sideline. It is interesting. It would certainly change a lot of the offense. You're right, because a lot of it is geared to trying to find those corners and get the drive and kick there. And then they probably would probably eliminate all shots. Why would you shoot in the deep corner ever at that point? So that would change really radically. I don't know if I would like that or not. I feel like there's a certain notion of but the corner threes are my favorite shots, right? They usually come out of some really good offense. So if you take those away, then you might suffer from, not having as good offense as you could have at that point, and that might make everything worse. So I would probably say keep the corner three. Anybody else have any ideas?
Yeah, I think they should reduce the amount of timeouts.
Yes. Well, reduce amount of timeouts is a good one, and certainly somehow speed up the review process too. I mean, the review process seems like it's necessary and it's here to stay, so I suppose we have to keep it. But yeah, there are times when it's taking way too long. People are turning off the TV. That's a good call as well. So yeah, maybe limit one of those timeouts. I mean, they've already done their work to try and get those timeouts to be used, so you don't have too many at the end of the games. You don't have that many. I think you have 2. I think if you had 3 left and you get inside of whatever 3 minutes, then you lose one of them, if I'm not mistaken. So you only have 2.
Yeah.
And
it's
so
like in the Olympics, it was. I think the Olympics was like way more successful than I thought it was gonna be because like the game was faster. The what's it called? The breaks in between maybe like 1 minute, 2 minutes, and like each team only gets like maybe 2 timeouts per like quarter.
Right.
So the game was really fast.
Yeah, and like players can't call the timeouts. It has to be, or maybe only players can. The bench cannot call a timeout, which is fine. The bench could just yell it out and the player will call it, but that is something. But yeah, there's no question that the FIBA style and the Olympic style is so much better. But, the issue here obviously is revenue, right? The NBA needs those longer timeout breaks so they can get more commercials in, and it's really too bad. So that's probably never going to go away. But you're right. I love watching those games because they have a flow and they move much quicker. That would probably be a good solution, which will unfortunately never happen. What else? Anybody else want to weigh in here?
I got one for you,
Yeah.
Coach.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that is late, but
Go.
one of my regrets is how in the playoffs you'll see a team that's under 500. They need to make the playoffs, and particularly you saw that in the East. So I think last season you had Washington who was under 500 make the playoffs, but you had Golden State who was above 500.
Not making it
I
right.
want to see, right. I want to see 1 through 16. And the way that let me amend that. What I want to see is, for example, this ideal playing tournament. Washington would have had to play Golden State or whoever that ninth place team was. And whoever wins becomes the 8th seed in the East. So you might have had 1 or 2 teams in the West playing their games in the East. To me, that would be epic. Because now you get to see something that you don't normally see with the West Coast team, besides the final. You get to see a West Coast team play a team in the East. Now, you'll hear something like, logistics, the flights, time off, etc. I say, who cares? Make it happen.
Yeah.
That's my suggestion.
Love it. Love it. You know what? Great call. That was D-Rock from Brooklyn. Awesome call. Yeah, 1 through 16, lining up that way. We would have had some amazing first-round matchups in the last several years if we had done that. Without question, we need to. I like the idea, having a 500, you have to be 500 or better to make the playoffs. The problem is you might have a year where, the 16th team isn't above 500, but so that might be harder to implement, but certainly doing 1 through 16 and doing a true playoff across conferences would be so much more interesting for sure. By the way, I like the play-in, so we should keep that. I think that works. I mean, anything we're obviously building to try and eliminate the tanking, and I think we're moving somewhere along those lines where we have less teams trying to tank now. But yeah, for sure, great call on the 1 through 16 playoff format. I love that. Really quickly, Buzzer Beater again, my goodness, is just throwing the super chat money all over the place here. Thank you so much on the YouTube side. He wants to say, we need rivalries. How can we bring them back? With the way these players are all so friendly with each other in the offseason now, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to get rivalries. Anybody have any feelings about that?
Haven't players always been friendly though? I mean, because I hear people say that, and it's like, yeah, Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan played golf on the weekends. They were friends.
Magic Johnson and IT would kiss before a game.
Well, but you know why, right?
Was also there.
They had gotten into a fight. Isaiah and the Magic had gotten into a bit of an altercation the game before, so that was them making up. Just to throw it out there, but because I'm old enough to remember watching those games live. But you're right. Larry and Magic weren't really friends until 87, 88, toward the end of the careers. But Michael supposedly was friendly with those guys to get an edge. So he wasn't really maybe doing it because he's friendly. I mean, I know they're still good buddies and all that stuff, but you have to know with Michael, it sounded like he was doing that a little bit so he can get an edge on him, like Barkley in the finals. So I guess, but you have a point, and it didn't necessarily diminish. That said, the rivalry between Michael, the Bulls and the Suns, never really existed. It wasn't a thing because of the conference thing. We don't. I mean, listen, the Bulls Knicks. That's probably one of the most fiercest rivalries we had, right? And that doesn't exist anymore at all. I don't know what it would be. If it's not about them being friends or not being friends, what else is it, and what will we do? Is it the coaches need to stir it up?
I got one for you, Coach. So
yeah.
Look at the teams how they were built in the 90s. You had a lot of continuity. You got a lot of smart GMs every season. They say, all right, we still missing beats. For example, look at Brooklyn. They've got decimated on the rebounder, and instead of addressing the rebounder, they go out and get more shooting. So, and I'm not saying that Sean Marks is not a smart GM, but by and large, you see a lot of bad drafting, a lot of poor products on the court. I think it's really up to the fans to stop supporting these bad teams. Look at Minnesota. They've had Karl Anthony Towns for 7 seasons now, and besides the one where they brought in Jimmy Butler, thanks to Tom Thibodeau, they have not made playoffs. And I would argue that they're going backwards.
Yeah.
So those fans in Minnesota need to stop supporting that product on the court, and maybe they would have an effect on the owners saying, "Oh man, I'm not making money now. Maybe I need to really look at Jim Dolan." And then maybe that's not a strong example.
Yeah.
James Dolan rather for the Knicks. I'm here in New York. Crappy product for the last 20 years. So maybe he won a couple of years with Carmelo, and now the past season with Julius Randle. So how many GMs did he bring in before he finally got his act together?
Right.
The only problem was the Knicks, and it's more the Knicks fans, people that come to New York visiting, by and large, Manhattan is a big place to be. So if you're in town, one of the things you're going to do is go see a basketball game. And if you're in Manhattan, you're definitely going to go see the Knicks.
Right. That's a great call. Yeah, and we saw that with the Clippers too. With Sterling, Sterling was making money no matter whether they were winning or losing. Had never wanted to spend any money to improve the team, and because he could continue to get the same revenue, he'd actually spend less money in the team so he can make more money. And you're right, that definitely probably doesn't happen as much anymore. I think there's more of an incentive now, but I'm not sure that addresses necessarily the rivalries. How do we get these teams to take it I think the NBA doesn't want that, because that's when the fights all break out, right? Because everyone is so amped up and wanting to beat each other in a violent way versus just out in the scoreboard way. But I suppose it would make it a little bit more interesting, right, if we had more of that animosity between players, and we just simply don't have it, right? And I think that's the difference.
I don't know that that's inherently. I guess I try to play optimist, but it feels like we do have certain rivalries. They just may not bend to what they used to.
What are they now?
Like, there's never
Remind
going to
me.
be another Malice. Celtics, 76ers. Giannis always loves to go head-to-head with LeBron. Clippers, Lakers. So there's a few, Knicks and Hawks now after that series. I feel like they do exist to an extent. We're just not as focused on them.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. I mean, the thing is, what does a rivalry need to have? Does it have to be like multiple years in the playoffs battling against each other, which we know is hard. We don't have a lot of that. We had, I guess, the Cavs and the Warriors did that for all those years in the finals. But was that a rivalry? I think it was. Was that LeBron and Steph? Was that a rivalry? Yeah.
So I would say it was
Yeah,
a
of course.
rivalry, but it was a short-lived rivalry.
I mean, it was 4 years, right? And then,
I don't really think it's a rivalry,
So
though.
here's the thing: it stopped being a rivalry kind of when Kyrie left, though, didn't it? Like,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
at that point it was no longer competitive. It was just like,
right. That's true.
In order to have a rivalry,
It's
the
not
other
being a
team
rivalry
needs
when
to be able
KD
to be in your way.
went to Golden State.
Yeah. Okay. So you feel like the Warriors were so dominant, it was hard to be a rivalry. I mean, it was interesting.
at that point, Houston was more of a rival for Golden State than anybody.
Yeah, Houston.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's the other thing is back in the day before there were 30 teams in the NBA, you played more often if you were in the same conference, and that also developed that animosity too, which we don't have when they're only playing 4 times a year, maybe. Which is 2 more times than if you were in the opposite conference. So I find it, because it is compelling, even just the notion of LeBron having a Halloween party and like I think what he had a body of Steph like in the graveyard of his party. Like they were really throwing shade at each other on off the court too. So that makes for an interesting stuff. But like in the end, it definitely always
Houston,
felt
Golden
like
State did not like each other.
yeah, that's true. Okay.
But I think personality thing is players just don't have that animosity anymore. And for like LeBron does not hate Steph. He doesn't
right
to each other.
I think he might disrespect Steph. Right?
I mean, not that they're best friends, but they're like chill with each other. Like we see them off the court and stuff.
Yeah.
There's no point of them like having to do that kind of fake stuff for the media because they know it's ridiculous at this point.
Right. Well, listen.
Like LeBron can't do the whole, I took that personally type of thing because it's played out right. It's played out really.
Yeah, and there's brands. They want to uphold their brand, right? So no one wants to be like the bad guy necessarily anymore. Even though the bad guy used to get you a lot of extra press too. The NBA, I feel like, has almost cleaned that up, right? Like they didn't want, they didn't want fights. They didn't want guys who are angry and pushing everybody around and making it that way. They wanted a cleaner game, and that's what they got. I mean, the players also learned that too. Like they should behave a certain way, and that gets them in the league. And if they don't behave that way, they can get right out of the league pretty quickly. So I think that's this is the offshoot of what the league wanted to create.
I mean, also that social media.
Social media.
Like. We gotta remember, like the NBA is now firmly in the AAU generation. Like all of these guys play together from age 12 to 18, essentially.
Yeah.
Like they go to the same camps, they go to the same trainers, they go to the All-American games together. Like they know each other.
Trae Young's whole AAU team made the NBA.
Really?
Like that's
those guys?
crazy.
Yes, his whole AAU team.
That's crazy.
Jonathan Isaac, Colin Sexton, Wendell Carter Jr. I don't think Colin Sexton, but there was like a bunch of guys.
MPJ.
It was like Harry Giles, a whole bunch of like
wow,
crazy team. But
I hope they didn't lose any games. Wow. Yeah. No, but that's, and by the way, we had that a little bit back in the day too, but you're right. Not nearly at the level now where the players travel as much as they do and are on a lot of different teams and are teammates with each other like that. So, that said, I remember like my best friend and I, we'd get into fights on the basketball court sometimes, and we were best friends. We're not getting to that point in the NBA either. I mean, part of it could very well be it's so I mean, is it the threat of a fight is what causes rivalries? Is that what we're talking about?
I think there's definitely some animosity. I think that would definitely stir the pot a little bit. I don't know that it necessarily has to be fights or pushing and shoving and whatnot, but a heated battle year after year could definitely create that.
But if you get
traded, genuine disdain.
Yeah. Well, I got one thing to take care of. I got some business on the YouTube side. Thank you so much, Black Jedi, for the super chat. He has a question. Let's jump in here with this one. What do you think about defensive awards? I feel like it's a perception award. KD should have been all defensive those years in Golden State. There's no question since the Kobe years, Kobe won or got on those defensive teams some of those years that he was didn't deserve to be there because his reputation. So no question, the defensive stuff is also troubling to me. Even the Defensive Player of the Year award at times has been head scratching. Usually they just give it to the center, and everyone, you have to be so monumentally above everybody else from a different position to win it. So yeah, all the defensive awards are also problematic, as problematic, I suppose, as the stats they're trying to use as well. So Black Jedi, great point on that one too. Although he spelled it BLXCK. But that, am I supposed to say, how are you supposed to pronounce that?
I don't know. Anyway. I find it funny how he said, found it funny how he said their reputation awards, but then was like, yeah, KD deserved a couple. That's no offense to him, but like.
No, but he's saying because KD had a bad reputation.
I know,
and that's why he thinks he should.
I'm saying that KD wasn't that good defense. Like, he was a clear positive player.
Yeah,
but he wasn't all defense level. He was a really good. He was a solid weak side shot blocker, and for some reason we just connect being a solid weak side shot blocker. And when you have one of the best defensive communicators, and some of the best taggers in the league,
wait,
all defensive level.
Well, wait, Draymond didn't make some of the all defensive teams, right?
No, I'm saying that like
Draymond had 3 defensive players.
I'm saying the reason that Kevin Durant looks so impressive in some of those Warrior years is because of Draymond and because of Andre Iguodala and just like
Steve
because
Kerr.
of
I agree. But
go ahead.
But I have a point. Like it sounds so weird, but I feel like defense is something we shouldn't be able to talk about. I feel like underqualified to talk about defense sometimes.
Oh well,
I feel like it's the most subject. Like people will tell you D'Angelo Russell is like a great defender. Some people will say he's a terrible. My point is that like. No, I'm not saying it. My point is that fans, I feel like the average fan just doesn't know what good defense is. I think when people think of defense, think of like locking someone down.
Well, let me say this. Whenever I've broken down defensive clips on Twitter, like the most vociferous arguments I get are and rude comments back to me are usually related to defense. When in my mind, that's the one area where it is pretty clear, like, whose help rotation was that, and who screwed that up? In my mind, it's clear. But but you're right. So as
most
a result,
people don't understand that.
Yeah, but not only do they not understand it, but they think they understand it, right? Because defense is easy. Everyone knows how to play defense, and that's what's so weird about it is that I swear to God, I will get the most like just rude, belligerent pushback on that stuff on the defensive things, not even the offensive stuff. And it tells me that people don't understand how to see defense properly, and then the takes are just crazy, like they're LOL kind of crazy stuff. So there's something about defense that triggers people, or that makes them think that they know a lot more than they do, I guess.
And people don't understand that.
Information.
People don't understand that being a good defender doesn't.
No, I was just saying asymmetric information because we don't know everything. They know more than we do in terms of like what their responsibilities are. So for us to try to make those judgments, and it's the same thing. It's even more true in football because there's more people on the field. But generally, some guys' responsibilities are going to be incredibly different. Even though it may look similar, the responsibilities are going to be different depending on who's coaching.
Right, I agree. I mean, listen, the guy, when Russ turns his head and the guy cuts back door for the layup, I mean, those are the easy ones, right? And the easy fruit. But you're right.
People say he's a good defender, though.
Yeah, Coach, I want to hop in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because people always say that, like Steph isn't like a good defender or is a terrible defender, which I kind of agree. But like, if you watch most of the videos, he's mostly ISO'd on James Harden, Kyrie, Chris Paul, some of the best ISO guys in the league. So obviously he's not going to look as good as maybe Kawhi on them.
Right.
But like, there's always kind of a bias that, he's a bad defender. But when most people see him play defense, it's always against someone like James Harden or Kyrie, who's cooking everyone.
You guys might not remember, but like 4 or 5 years ago, I did a video on why he's a really, really good defender. He's not the same guy as he was now because he's got to conserve energy. But back then, he really was a really good defender, and I showed you why with clip after clip after clip, and it caused a huge controversy for a long time. The irony was after that clip came out, and I know he saw it because a couple games after that, he was like dominant defensively, like to prove everybody he was getting steals and stopping guys. It was crazy. And so, but the things he did like on the weak side and his energy and his movement, and also just what Steph likes to do is like be provocative, reaching in, daring the referee to call it. And they don't call it that often. Like we need to teach reaching in more, not less, because you're not going to call every single call, and you're probably going to benefit enough from getting steals and deflections that it's worth it. So, but there's no question. I mean, I know one of the big things with Steph was they would like force a switch, and the big man would have him, and he's going to walk down to the low post and post him up, and Steph would stand the guy up. He literally would try and crash into Steph and knock him down, and Steph would stand him in place and would not let him back him down. He could deadlift more than anybody in the team. He had such a strong core and strong legs. So that was really overlooked, and I was glad I could put him on the radar. I took so much crap for that, by the way. You wouldn't believe it because of the way Steph looks. They assumed he wasn't a good defender. By the way, it's not as much now. He's not like the same guy. But the reason why he got ISO'd in the past, like in the finals, is simply because he's not Klay Thompson. You know, they're not going to go at Klay because he's great. They're not going to go at Draymond because he's great. And at some point, the only person left is like the quote unquote the weakest link. But that's Steph. You know, only because of that. Almost more because his other teammates were such great defenders that they had to choose somebody, and they ended up being Steph.
So it is reputation in some sense, then.
For reputation, looks, you know, his appearance.
Let's not lie. Like, I've heard of, I can't remember what NBA player said it before that like being like the white guy that made them like a player that everyone wanted to ISO on.
It was JJ and Duncan Robinson.
Yeah, that's who said it. They were saying that like just being the white guy means you're getting ISO'd on, which is just like
that's
like,
truth.
It's just whatever archetype you have, whatever race you are, like players just go, that's reputation. And fans do it as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, listen, we heard what did Montrezl Harrell called
a bitch ass white boy.
Yes, right, Luka. And I get it. I mean, listen, by the way, speaking of rivalries, that's a good rivalry. I like that animosity. I like to see him go back at. But you know what? By the end of that, whether or not they forced Montrezl to like have to hug it out, whatever, I don't know, because it's almost like I like that thing. Luka seemed to at least understand it, didn't take a lot of offense to it. But I can see why, like, I mean, listen, I'm not in a position to explore that necessarily, what that means when you have all of a sudden this white guy come in the league and like dominate like he does. As far as I can tell, skill wise, he deserves that position, and he's proving everybody that's him. But, you know, clearly there was something about that, you know, got Montrez upset about, until they hugged it out.
But you know what I find so funny? The best example of this is, like, you can see my profile picture, Campasso. Every single game they played, the commentators are like, wow, he's a good defender. Everyone's surprised that this 5'11" white guy can defend.
Yeah.
Little they know that in Europe, he's one of the best defenders ever to play.
Really?
Well, people just kind of look at him, they go, what's he doing? Like this, he doesn't ISO this guy every time. And then he gets steals, he gets blocks, he gets deflections. Everyone's surprised every time, based on how he looks.
Absolutely. I mean, and by the way, that happens everywhere in every facet of society, right? Like, it's hard to avoid that. You know, and you wonder why people want to, you know, they push back against like critical race theory, right? Whatever. But it's like, we need to understand these things, understand the real, the honest truth of what the history of this is, why a guy like Campasso would come into the league and be like considered not a good defender, so that we can overcome that. I mean, that would be the goal, I'd imagine. And you're right. Yeah, Campasso is really just like pesky. He gets deflections. He's a tough guy you don't want to have to deal with. And, you know, you're right. Hopefully the announcers will also adjust the way they do it and stop sort of being, quote unquote, surprised at it, because we kind of know what they're saying and it's not true. We have another super chat in there. Thank you so much. Buzzer Beater is like on fire today. Thank you so much, my man. Why don't guys improve if they have trainers, etc.? Ooh, that's an interesting question. Well, I mean, the shortest answer to why guys don't improve if they have these, you know, great trainers is that they're not being trained optimally for what they need to do. And, you know, a lot of times trainers will just be doing what they've seen for the last 50, 60 years, which has yielded results for a lot of players, but not for everybody, and you have to get out of the box. And that doesn't happen a lot of the time. Sometimes trainers might have too many clients, and so a couple of guys at the end of their list get the short end of the stick and don't get as much attention. And maybe they assume, well, he's not as good as these guys, so I can't spend as much time with them. I don't know, but I would certainly think that the slave to being the old school fundamental stuff gets in the way most of the time, where they're not pushing the boundaries of what you can do training wise with technique and methodology to improve and unlock more of that potential. And that's it's too bad. That's why we're trying to get all this stuff out. In fact, I just had a call before the show where we're trying to plan a big coaching clinic with some of the people that I know that are not like famous big names, but are doing the most cutting edge training you've seen imaginable. And I want to do that so these guys can get a bigger platform and get more of that information out so that more people can learn how to train better. Anybody want to weigh in on that?
I go with mindset. One of my favorite trainers, not guys to read, is Tim Grover. Pretty sure most of us know who that man is. So he has the book Relentless, How to Go From Good to Great to Unstoppable. So if I were to use an example of a guy like Eddie Curry was a guy who was naturally talented, but never had the mindset to put everything together. I think that goes a long way in developing an individual in the NBA. A guy like Eddie Curry, and you could even throw Shaq in that same conversation too. Shaq was just so naturally gifted, but as years went on, he got the bigger, the more famous he got, the bigger he got, literally.
Yeah.
And he ate his, I wouldn't say he ate his way out. I believe that was Curry, but just throughout the years, he sat weight and became less and less effective until he had to retire. So I think mindset, by and large, goes a long way. And guys that think that they can get off on their talents, they don't realize what else has to go into crafting their game and going to that next level. So get in the league is good.
That's a great point. And talking about Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan's guy all those years, and the mindset of knowing how to push yourself properly and improve is important, especially because a lot of trainers are probably worried they're going to get fired, and they don't want to be in situations with their clients where they have to push them enough to the point where they might look for somebody else to work with them. That's a very real thing. It's their livelihood. You don't want to lose these clients, and so sometimes you might get stuck in a situation where you feel like you can't say what you got to say to these guys or help them alter their mindset to achieve more out of them. So that's another interesting thing because it's clearly the trainers don't want to lose their clients, and that could be part of it as well. Anybody else?
A quick one.
Yeah, Larry.
Yep.
I'll let somebody else. Go ahead. Sorry.
Larry, no worries. As a teacher, I would say that if you want to develop your skills, it might take more than 1 year or one off season to develop your skills, like free throw shooting as such. So some coach might be afraid that the development will take more than 1 season, 1 off season, 2 seasons. It will be much longer process. So
for sure. And by the way, not only that, but if you try and develop that over 1 off season, knowing it's going to be 2 off seasons, in between they're going to play a regular season, and you could undo all the work that you had tried, while they're flying and playing all these games and all these nights, and then all of a sudden you have to start from scratch again the second off season and restart over again. That's also very difficult. So it's a very tough situation.
And first of all, if you're trying to learn the new technique for example, free throw shooting or shooting motion, there might be the new shooting form might be broken when the regular season starts. So then you might lose your job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great point. It's not easy to do. And I mean, at the very least, if they get to the NBA, you probably aren't going to be broken, right? You have something to work with, unless you're somebody like Ben Simmons. It's a very my goodness gracious, who's the three name guy who's a really horrible shot? Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, yeah. Unless you're like that, it's very, very, very rare, right? You're talking about like one every couple of years or one every 5 years or something like that who would come along and really is broken like that, shooting-wise at least. By the way, there are guys that don't dribble very well, and that doesn't seem to ever really improve either. That's really interesting to me. I don't understand that at all. I mean, at the very least, that should be improving, going forward. But then again, if you're going to be old school about all this stuff and you're going to teach like dribbling drills where you're static and not moving, that generally tends for me to, it means to me like you're not going to improve, because all the dribbling stuff that you do when you're static doesn't apply to the games when you're never dribbling in place, especially the guys who I'm thinking about who don't dribble well now and don't seem to ever improve. Very, very strange. Black Jedi, again, another super chat. Thank you so much. He wants to know the expectations for Brooklyn this year, buy or sell. I mean, you got to buy. I mean, you have to assume they're going to be healthy. That's how I generally do it, unless someone's biomechanics are so off that you kind of figger they're going to keep getting injured. So I just have to assume these guys are going to be healthy, and if that's the case, they're winning the whole thing. And I don't think anyone's going to challenge. Even the Bucks won it, but I don't think they would be able to beat them without question if they're all healthy. So anybody else want to challenge me on that one?
Maybe a Brooklyn Nets fan in here chime in on that.
Yep.
It's basically health, and I don't like to make excuses for what happened last season. However, looking at the injuries, I mean, we beat the Milwaukee Bucks by 49 with just KD and Kyrie, and James Harden was out for that game too. Game 3 they won. If it wasn't for injuries, I think we're celebrating in Brooklyn. I would
yeah. Like
if this team is healthy, it's a wrap.
Yeah, there's no question. Had Giannis not slid underneath Kyrie and hurt his ankle unintentionally, that the Nets were going to win that series. And I don't care that the Bucks won that one game. I don't think the Nets were going to sweep them. I never said that anyway. But it seemed clear to me from what we had as the evidence laid out from the first 3.5 games, that there was no way the Bucks were going to win. And it's amazing to me that Coach Budenholzer goes from 10 minutes from being fired to an extension now after winning the whole thing. That's how this goes. It can turn on a dime. And no question, they are healthy. I don't see anybody beating them in either conference. And it's not even a hot take. I think that's the whole key. So you're right on there with the health goes, and that's the expectation. So I would buy, I would put money down, and just I can't exist in the notion of that someone's going to get hurt, right? I don't live in that mind space. So I'm assuming they're going to be healthy enough and they're going to make it.
Follow up, coach.
Yes.
Who do you think is their best on-ball defender?
Their best on-ball defender on the Nets. Well, it's not Harden, and it's not. It's probably not Kyrie. I mean, it's probably going to be KD. I'm trying to think of who else now within the team. Is Luau Cabarro, and it's not he's pretty good. Oh no, I know it's Bruce Brown. He's the best on-ball defender, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh. Yep. Okay, because last year, I know they put what's his name, Jeff Green on Jason Tatum, and he could actually bang with him a bit when he goes down in the post.
I will make a prediction. They're going to sorely miss Jeff Green. I know. I mean, they're bringing him the corpse of Paul Millsap, who's not going to give him what they got from Jeff Green. Jeff Green was really big for them, really big. And maybe they benefit a little bit better on the margins because Blake Griffin will be there for a whole training camp and he'll be assimilated better into the team. But I'm telling you, man, Jeff Green did some serious work for them last year, and I don't understand why they didn't keep him. I guess I have to look at the numbers. Maybe the salary just ended up getting too high, but that's going to hurt them. They're gonna be moments, I think, in this season when they're like, damn, Jeff would have really helped us in this game, or helped us in this playoff series.
Yeah.
My guess is Sean Marks is thinking we're going to outscore the team so bad, defense won't matter.
By the way, that's not a bad take when you're talking about Kyrie and KD and Harden. I mean, that is I could see why they'd feel that way. Obviously, they're going to have games though that are crucial games they need to win that are going to be close down the stretch. That's when I've said this before. That's when I worry about the Nets offense because that they're going to go to hero ball, and those are a lot harder shots to try and make. They might have looked awesome in the first part of the first half, but when you get down to the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter and you're down by 2 and you need to take good shots on the road, and you got KD just pulling up from 26 and Kyrie doing that, a couple of those shots don't fall and they get burned, and that could be a game 5, and then that could change the whole series. So that's the only thing. It's a very slim path to figuring out how to beat them, but that would be it. And that's the issue with a lot of teams too. I mean, I was watching the pros play pickup last week. A bunch of NBA guys were getting ready for the season, and it really was this one-on-one with 8 guys watching. But it did remind me a little bit of like down the stretch offense for some of those teams too, and it was really kind of frustrating. At the very least, I would have think, and even in a pickup, that they would actually try and run some stuff to get some work out of that, run some offensive sets or something. But no, that was not going to happen. By the way, I don't play pickup anymore. I don't really watch pickup anymore. Is that what it is now? Is pickup just one-on-one with 8 guys watching?
Yep.
Gosh, I mean, I used to be able to spot up and like hit threes. Like people would drive and kick it out to me. But I kind of feel like I would never get a shot anymore.
You'll get one shot, and if you miss it, you'll never get it.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, by the way, but that also reminds me, you know what used to happen is I would nail like a nice deep three, and then everybody on my team would just start shooting them, like as if they want to prove that they can make them too. You ever know that phenomenon?
Yep.
And so it's like, why am I doing this? This is really frustrating.
My kids will do it in an AAU game.
Really? So one guy would make one or two, and the next thing you know, they're all just trying to jack him up?
Yep.
But whatever happened, like going to the hot hand, man, that's like the whole thing, I thought. I guess not.
It's kids really see somebody with a hot hand now, and they're like, well, maybe it transferred to me. Like, that's
wow.
literally the mindset.
Wow. That's got to be so frustrating. Oh, we got another couple more super chats. We're getting close to the end of the show here, so I want to film those in before we go. But buzzer beater, it's me again. Over under Knicks 45 wins. I'm kind of a little bit bearish on the Knicks, but believe it or not. I think the Eastern Conference is too good right now. And listen, I did the video on the Knicks. I showed why they're better, and they shored up a major pick and roll weakness they had in the half court. But the other teams are really good too. 45 is a tough number because now you really got to make a decision here and figure out how that fits in. I don't know, man. Though I might go with. Speaking of like injuries, like if Kemba doesn't stay healthy, then I might go under 45. So I would probably if I had a gun to my head, I'd pick that. And then Black Jedi, another awesome. Thank you so much for the other super chat. KD guarded JT and Jeff didn't play, foot injury. Oh, so is that right? Not at all. Jeff didn't play in any of those games against the Celtics. I can't remember now. But if that's the case,
he didn't play the game back then. He put 50 on them.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe Green in the regular season guard, and that's what they were talking about. But another super chat. Thank you, Stephen Kwan. What are my thoughts on the Clippers? They're going to be right there if they're healthy. What do the Clippers do this offseason? Now I'm trying to remember. Who can remind me?
Eric Bledsoe.
Oh yeah.
Eric Bledsoe drafted B.J. Boston, Keon Johnson, Jason Preston.
And they lost somebody? No? Rondo? Yeah.
Rondo, Pat Bev.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's going to be a problem. Today, they might have just put a ceiling on their play because Bledsoe's going to start, right?
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Maybe they still got Reggie Jackson.
Yeah, or Reggie. I mean, Reggie did very nicely in the playoffs, but I kind of feel like politically they end up starting Bledsoe. That'll be interesting.
Reggie as an off-ball guard is kind of good, though. I'm not going to lie.
What is?
I think they moved PG to the 3.
He seems better as an off-ball guard.
Yeah, all that. Yeah, I don't know. Eric Bledsoe is a little bit of a buzzkill for me, so I'm not feeling great about the Clippers honestly right now. As well as I did like last year before the injuries. Oh, the other thing is Kawhi is not playing, right? He won't play for the whole year. Nope. So yeah, that's going to be rough. Now Paul George also looked really good as the sole guy and being the leader of that team. So, but not enough to like get to the. I'm not sure they make the Western Conference Finals at that point. Now Kawhi, maybe he comes back by the playoffs, but then he's going to be rusty. So, yeah, the Clippers, I don't know. It's going to be rough this year for them. It's going to be disappointing having been so excited and have, such an opportunity. They probably – I think they took a gamble, and kudos for that, but I think they're ultimately going to, it won't pay off for them.
And the Thunder have their pick.
Ooh.
In case – if anything went wrong.
Right.
It could go very wrong. Considering it's like riding off the back of one player. Like if PG missed a couple of weeks, their season could be completely done.
That said, it's got to be protected, isn't it?
I don't know what the protections are.
But even still, what's worse is that like they're good, but their pick is 12th, and then there's definitely wouldn't be protected there. And now OKC gets another pick. A 12th pick is pretty good depending on the year. That's by the way, OKC is on their way to being good at some point too with Shai Gilgeous and the other couple of guys. So another good draft pick or two, and they'll be on their way just in time for. I guess who like the Warriors might start going in decline. Who else in the West is going to start? The Lakers, right? LeBron's going to be gone. And
it's unprotected.
It's unprotected. They really dealt an unprotected pick. Wait, what was the deal for? Was that the Shea Gildas deal? What was the deal?
Yeah, it was part of the Paul George trade.
Oh wow, they were able to get God, Sam Presti. That's amazing. You'll never hear of an unprotected pick going ever again, as far as I'm concerned. But I can't believe that they were able to wrangle that one. Well, listen,
Coach. I have a question.
Yeah, shoot in there. Last couple before we go.
So back to the Knicks. So what do you think the pecking order is between Kemba, Fournier, and Randle? Because Kemba was okay playing second to Jason Tatum, but I don't think he's gonna play second to Randle.
Right. That's a good question, because we know Fournier is going to be a little bit complimentary too. He'll play off of people, and that's not a worry. Kemba, yeah, right. He had no problem doing that with Tatum. Why wouldn't he do it with Randle? Because Randle's not as good as Tatum. Yeah, I could probably see that. I think that makes the Knicks better. I mean, I don't think you want Randle as the number one anyway. So, will Randle handle that is another question.
Yeah, that's kind of.
But I imagine that yes, I think Kemba is going to need to be that role like he was more in Charlotte, and Randle's going to have to sort of buy into that and know that he'll get some easier shots off of that ideally, and less of the ISO pull up 18, 20 footers that are so hard to make in the playoffs. Certainly for him, what we saw with his percentages plummeting when they needed him. Another quick super chat. Thank you so much from Brian Holiday. Wants to ask, whose game in the NBA most like a sweet, soulful symphony, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and whose game is most like a loud, grungy garage band, Nirvana? Oh, my goodness. So who's most like... Okay, well, this is a good way to finish then, Brian. Earth, Wind, and Fire. Are we all old enough to remember who they are?
I mean, yeah, I know the music.
All right. So do you remember... whatever the words are. So who's that? Who would that be? That would be Sweet Soulful Symphony. Anybody want to take on that one?
I'd say Jason Tatum is one of the more smooth players in the league.
It's so funny because sometimes his shot is not smooth at all to me, but okay, I could see that off the dribble stuff. Okay, so Jason Tatum is a pretty good call. I guess that's kind of like, isn't that Kawhi?
Yeah, kind of.
I get. I
don't know. He's like a smoother version of Kawhi to me. I don't know.
Yeah, like Kawhi feels so herky jerky. Like it don't.
Oh, really?
He just makes it look easy. I don't know.
I guess, but Kawhi isn't loud enough to be like a symphony. Right? He's more like a duet.
A monotone noise.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like his laugh.
He's elevated music.
So he's elevated music. Absolutely. There you go. And whose game is most like a loud, grungy garage band? I mean, that's got to be one of Lopez, right?
Embiid or something.
Robin Lopez.
I'm thinking Robin Lopez is loud, grungy garage band with his hook. Randall. Oh yeah. I mean, maybe like Russ. Isn't Russ? Well, Russ would be like. It's kind of like that. Zion. I could see that. Although Zion is kind of smooth too, isn't he?
Yeah, kind of. But I don't know.
All the hits.
It's kind of like he just jumps up there and figures it out sometimes. It's a little messy.
Yeah, he's violent. It's violent too. Okay. Paul George could be sweet Earth, Wind, and Fire too. Good call.
He's very smooth too.
Yeah, but we got to go with Brody for grungy garage band. I think for sure. And Patrick Beverly, right?
My homer pick would be Isaiah Stewart.
Who?
Isaiah Stewart.
Isaiah Stewart. Why do I know who Isaiah Stewart is?
For the grungy. He was a rookie center. All rookie.
Plays for the Pistons.
Oh, for the Pistons? Okay. Well, full disclosure.
That's why.
If you played 12 minutes for the Pistons last year, I probably didn't really see
you. He was all rookie second team.
Oh, man. All right. Listen, you believe me. Give me some crap for that. I promise I'm going to make sure I get my fingertips on
very entertaining player to watch
this year. Last year was weird for some reason. I didn't get to I didn't see certain teams at all, and all of a sudden the season ended. I was like, crap. I didn't really watch Detroit. I hopefully
you'll be able to watch him. He might be starting, I think.
Yeah, and there's some players in Detroit I like now. I want to watch, so they're going to be better, and certainly with Cade. So I promise I'm going to get that going more. Something about last season though was uninteresting, right? It was a little bit boring. I found myself sort of just not paying attention to games after a certain amount of time during constantly, and I don't know what that was, but hopefully this offseason has refreshed me, replenished me, all of us. We're ready to come back and just League Pass alert off the wazoo and really just watch a lot of these games. What do you say?
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Sure.
Well, we got to wrap it up, guys, with awesome stuff. I'll post this as a pod so you guys can all be heard again in the on the feed on that side in case we missed it. So thank you guys for all being here on the YouTube side. All the super chats were so generous. Thank you guys. And don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel, we're a conversation. You in? Are you guys in?
Yeah.
We're in.
Yeah, we